Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we are doing an awesome video for you. We're doing an extremely in-depth dive on Power of the Elements, pretty much covering everything that matters in the set, aside from the filler cards. We're going to be going through the brand new archetypes in the set, the support for older archetypes in the set, and the brand new generic cards that apply to multiple different decks as well. We're going to leave out the filler cards, but I will say this, even with this is the only light I'll give on to the filler cards in the set. Normally, core sets in these 80 card lists, before you get like the TCG portion of the set, have like 15-ish filler cards in the set. I would say this set has like literally like 7 or 8. It's a really, really small number. I love that. Why have filler if it's just exactly that and doing nothing else for your set? You might as well have like some decent, like weird Mokimoki support, weird Ice Jade support. I don't care. Like that's something. Somebody somewhere loves Mokimoki. But nobody cares about these random filler cards. So I love that. Way to go, Konami, on that, cutting down on those. And yeah, so I guess the other two things to mention before we jump into this. First thing is, keep in mind, this is going to be the 80 base cards we're looking at here. We're not including the 20 cards we'll get down the line for the TCG version only. So things may change overall depending on what comes there. I know we have the new archetype guaranteed there, and there'll probably be some other imports. Hopefully there's some good ones, but we'll see. The other thing there is keep in mind my mindset when I'm looking at these sets. I usually tend to look at these from a more competitive standpoint. I'm more so looking for a core set that's going to change the format for better or for worse. I'm just looking for change whatsoever, because we get these core sets sometimes that don't have any good new archetypes, don't have any support that's really taking anything to the next level like that in a competitive sense, and there's no great generic cards that are going to be played widely throughout the game. And I'm like, why? What is the point of this set? So that's what I'm looking at here, just so you know my mindset and where I'm coming from to make more sense to you. So let's jump into this with the first new archetypes here. Gigantic Splight. This card is crazy. It will be the ban when this deck is too good. I promise you that. And this deck is tier 1 on drop. It's a deck based around spamming out level, link, and rank 2 monsters. We've never really seen a deck quite like that. I've seen a couple, like Melfi's, right? Small. I guess kind of Live Twins as well kind of do a little bit of that, and Frogs. But this deck is like no other. I mean, this is like the burning abyss of level 2s. It's really crazy. You can summon any level 2 monster from the deck. You could summon any level 2 monster from the grave every turn. Really powerful stuff. Really insane extension. They can play a lot of hand traps. It's going to be tier 1 on drop. Be aware of that. So I really like this archetype. I give it a 9 out of 10 just because it's going to be meta on the drop, and I think it's really cool. We'll probably get tired of it quickly because it's going to be crazy. This deck is searching Max C right now in the OCG. It's insane. Next up here we have Terralements. This is another really good archetype in my opinion. I think I would give this deck like an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's probably just below Splice. I think Splice are like almost guaranteed tier 1. Whereas this deck, depending on the format, it could end up in tier 2. But I don't really see it getting much worse than tier 2. It kind of gives me Lightsworn vibes, but kind of better. The problem with Lightsworn is that they have cards that you want to draw and help you get your engine moving. And then you have the bricks that you don't really want to draw. You just want to be able to send them when you're using your engine cards. And this deck, every card is both. Like every card has good effects on the field that gets your engine moving, and every card has effects when it's sent to grave by card effects. So they're great. The whole deck floats, very powerful. I really have high hopes for it, and I can't wait to see what people end up splashing fusion engine wise into this deck for sure. And it's also waifu based, so I guess that's a bonus for a lot of people. And the final new archetype here is Vernalizer Fairy. Normally we only get 2 archetypes per new core set. We're going to get these plus 1 more in the TCG exclusive section, confirmed. So they're very funny. But this one's interesting. I wouldn't say this is bad just because the other 2 are great. I would give this one a 7 out of 10. Here's what's going on with this archetype. It doesn't feel complete, but it does feel like a good solid start to an engine. A lot of the cards can reborn any earth monster in grave, which is pretty sweet. They can search out some of their archetypal cards. They have one pretty good trap card that bounces multiple cards. And it just feels like an engine. And it does lock you into earth stuff, so you do want to combine this with a pretty pure earth deck. I just don't know what that deck would be off the top of my head just yet. But I will keep it in mind, and I do think this deck has potential because it's so generically applicable to anything really earth-based that down the line it could be a legit part of like a really good deck. But for now it's a 7 just because of potential, but it's not a full-on archetype yet, to me. So we'll see. So there's the 3 new archetypes, a 9, an 8.5, and a 7. That's pretty solid for 3 archetypes there. So we're going to move to the archetypal support from this point. We're going to start with the elemental hero stuff. I'm not going to bash the set for having mediocre elemental hero support. They've been doing this for like 5 to 10 sets now, maybe even before that, where the cover card is more like an ace monster of a popular anime character to help sell the set, help market. But the support for that is very anime-esque as well. It's not very competitively oriented, just like this elemental hero stuff. There's some cheeky stuff in here for the elemental heroes, but it's not crazy. If you're a casual player, this is really sweet. A lot of cool cards there. But if you're a hero player, this isn't really changing too much up for you, I wouldn't imagine. So there you go. 8 new cards, though, for elemental heroes. Pretty cool. Moving on from there, Gem Knights get 4 new cards. The weird part about the Gem Knight support is it's weirdly oriented into like going seconds effects. I don't really get that, but like I guess they want to steer away from Gem Knights being seen as just this FTK deck over time. So maybe they're just trying to get away from that. But weird. I think it kind of misses the mark in terms of playability, though. But who knows? I'm no Gem Knight expert. 4 new Melfi cards. They actually get a new Synchro monster and a monster that helps them Synchro on the opponent's turn. So not only would you have access to Hopbeard Squadron, but now a new monster that helps you Synchro as well, and a Synchro level 4 that gives you an interruption, I believe, on Summon, which is pretty sweet as well. So actually some pretty good stuff there. Melfi's definitely get a nice little buff here, especially if you're trying to play Pure. Next up, we get 3 vendread support cards. I remember the ritual being mediocre, but the monster and the new ritual spell actually seem pretty good as far as getting you like pluses while doing ritual summons. So I'll take it for sure. And I know vendreads have been seeing a little bit of play. Maybe even if it's just the whichever one it is Savior that's been seeing play in Drytron as of late as an interesting tech card. But yeah, interesting. Next up, we move to 3 new like branded lore cards. I will say this: they all seem mediocre as hell. I just think we're at that point where they're just kind of fleshing out the lore now with cards. They're not as worried about making new awesome branded cards, because now with the structure deck, we have so many insane branded cards that they're just like, we have the good cards, let's just push the lore now. So you had a new Albaz, but he doesn't do that much. You have a new Dogmatica card, but it's weird to set up. And you have a branded separation, which we have better trap versions of this card anyway. Moving on, 2 new punk cards. The field spell seems mediocre to me, but this card seems pretty crazy. On summon, it can either search or foolish any level 3 psychic. It's kind of crazy. So you can that could be a punk monster, or you could just search Ghost Ogre. It's funny as hell. I love that. He also comes back from grave. It's honestly a nice piece. It's a nice way for them to synchro up in the kind of synchro climb in punk, which is really nice. For sure. Especially I think you can make this off of 1 or 1.5 cards in the deck anyway. So that's pretty nice. Moving on, 2 new Exorcister cards. These are huge. Exorcisters get a huge buff here. They get this card, which is one of the most insane. You read this card and it reads insane. And then they get a new trap card that's a really powerful interruption as well. The engine feels so much better with the addition of these 2 new cards. I think Exorcisters are a legit terrifying rogue control deck after this set. Keep an eye on them. Rika's, same thing. 2 new really powerful cards. The Princess is not only a really good extender for plant decks in general, but also a monster negate while in grave or in hand while there's a Rika monster on the field. That's insane. And they get a new field spell, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's a +1 that gets any Rika spell or trap. And if you ever would tribute a plant, you could tribute an opponent's monster instead once per turn. That's insane because 80% of the Rika cards tribute a monster to do something. So you just every turn are tributing an opponent's monster. Really insane, raises the ceiling of the deck. And then not only that, but Snow Princess also makes the Sun Avalon combo deck much better as well. So really, really cool. Therians, they get 2 new cards here. The other one's not that great. It's kind of a high ceiling, but I don't even know if it's worth playing in a Therian deck. The other one is this one. It's a decent extender. It can special summon a Therian that's in the spell and trap zone by discarding a card. Other than that, it is a reptile as well. So this could be the level 8 reptile extender from hand that we've been looking for in the reptile decks. Maybe the rank 8 strategy comes back a little bit because this card helps you kind of spam out more level 8 reptiles easier, but we'll see. Definitely something to keep in mind, though. Definitely excited for him. Moving on here, we have 2 new Scareclaw cards, a Link 1 that pretty much makes the deck a 1-card combo deck. The one thing is, though, it isn't setting up interruption as easy as you'd want. It kind of sets up more like a tower. So in that regard, it seems more like an Ad Ignister deck than like a Prank Kids deck. But still, you know, the Link one's pretty crazy. The other one's a Battle Trap, which is fine. Maybe it's a one-of, but it's whatever. From there, we have like one of the craziest cards in the set, Mathmech Circular. This card, without your normal summon, lets you put like 3 Link materials on the board. It's insane. It's particularly insane in Mathmech, but it's even insane in other Cybers decks as well. I think we'll see this card played in any Cybers deck that can fit it in, pretty much. This card is so crazy. This could be like arguably like the 4th best card in the set, and it's just a one-off Mathmech support card. It's insane. One, Amaze Attracts and Thrill Train. Cool card. This is something I wish that they had gotten a long time ago. It's a secondary, like, decent interruption card, pretty much. It's solid. We'll take it for sure. And hopefully this is like a sign that they're going to keep working on amazements. I'd love to see that. They feel like they only have like 4 or 5 good cards in the archetype, and that doesn't feel like enough. But yeah, something. Next up, we have a Crawler card. This card's crazy. If you read this card, you're like, holy crap. And I made a video where I was like, if this card had Subterra in the name and Subterra in the text, this card would be like the perfect Subterra card. Like, you might have to change a couple words in the text to make it like fit more to the Subterra archetype. But I was like, wow, this card is like the dream for Subterras. But it's still a dream for Crawlers. They definitely need a card like this. Next up is Gunkin. It's a meme deck, like, cool. New Gunkin card, whatever. New Mokimoki. This one's really funny. Like, this card is actually kind of crazy. It counts as Mokimoki on the field or in the grave, so that helps. And it's treated as a normal monster. And you can discard this card to add any Mokimoki card from deck to hand. So, really funny. Maybe down the line we'll see Konami kind of flesh out Mokimoki as a full-on archetype, kind of like Karibo's, kind of like Skull Servant kind of feel. For sure. That'd be really funny. And I think the final support card we have here is an Ice Jade card. I'm not even going to bother telling you about what it does, because I think this card kind of just sucks cheeks. But Ice Jade sucked cheeks, so I don't know anybody who would be expecting Ice Jades to turn it around all of a sudden with one new card. Kind of a shame. I hope Konami, maybe down the line, will give them like 1 or 2, like just like a handful of crazy support cards to kind of like get them on track, but I don't see it happening. So now we move into the generic support cards. Do not forget, we already talked about the Mathmech card. That card's insane, but I already showed it to you, so it kind of applies to all Cybers decks, so just keep that in mind. The first one here, though, is Grand Ground Tusk Dragon. When this card is just normal or special summon, it can target up to 2 cards on the field and destroy them. What? And if it does, you gain 600 for every card destroyed. The biggest application I can think of this card is Heavenly Spheres. Heavenly Seals of the Dragon of the Heavenly Seals. Spheres. Whatever. You know the card I'm talking about. So, like, if you just play this card in your main deck, it means you can go Spheres, tribute itself to bounce a card, or I think it's a monster, non-targeting. Then you summon this dude from deck, and then this dude pops 2 cards. And he pops 2 cards, which I love too. He doesn't pop 2 monsters, it's any 2 cards. That makes Heavenly Spheres like literally a 1 card remove 3. That is insanely powerful. Insanely powerful. Like, I don't know what to say. And then you get a body, and then you have a dragon body on the field. It's a level 8 as well, so that's actually a pretty nice level. Definitely an interesting card, for sure. It would probably be a brick, but it does raise the ceiling of that play. So what are you going to do? From there, also the Earth Channeler. This finally get another Channeler, which is good to see. This one is a little bit locked, though. You have to discard it in another Earth monster, and you can only add an Earth monster with 1850 or less attack, and it has to share a type with one of the 2 monsters you discarded. So either a spellcaster, like Asa, or whatever the other Earth monster has to share the same type. So it's a little more locked than I would have liked, but I guess Earth is a little bit more generically abusable than Wind, so they had to like lock this one a little bit more than the Wind one. But we'll see. It's nice to see. Maybe there'll still be specific decks that can take advantage of this, but we'll have to see. Then we move to Dragon King's Aura, really good new generic trap card. It's kind of like Solemn Strike, negates a monster effect on the field only, so keep that in mind. But when you negate and destroy a monster, you can also choose to banish a monster from your hand to summon their monster back to your field with its effects negated. So pretty cool high ceiling there. One thing I will say is with something like Subterra, a slower deck that has trouble putting damage on board, this helps you get another big body. And this has like crackdown vibes. When you steal an opponent's monster, its effects are negated, you can use Guru to flip that monster down, then flip it back up, and now it has its effects again. So you could steal like a Baronne de Fleur, then you like flip it down, flip it up, and now you have a negate next to Guru, and you're pushing for a ton of damage. Like really, really strong. I think this card could do something like replace the idea of crackdown in something like Subterrors. Definitely something to consider. Next up here, we have subspecies King Ashura O. He can attack up to the number of materials he has. Pretty cool. And he's 21. It's decent for a rank 3. And he can negate any other monster's effect by detaching material. That is a hard once per turn, which is probably fair. And the one downside to this card is, of course, that it needs at least 3 level 3 monsters. You cannot make it with 2 level 3s. If you can make this with 2 level 3s, this card would be played in BA decks, in probably in Phantom Knight decks. Like, this card is actually kind of crazy anti-nib card. So it has a fair drawback, but it honestly has some pretty powerful effects as well, which is pretty cool. And now we get to the final 2 cards here. These are the powerhouse generic cards in the set. I'd love to see these. The first one here is Artemis Slay. It's a spell card. Send one monster from your extract to the grave, then target a monster your opponent controls of the same type. So it'd be Fusion, Synchro, Exceed, Pendulum, or Link. Shuffle their monster into the deck, and your opponent cannot activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. This card's crazy. So first and foremost, they can't respond with the monster you're trying to remove. They have to have spell or trap ways to negate this card. Secondly, it shuffles into the deck. That's really, really good because we're only really targeting extra deck monsters here anyway. And the last thing, so it does target. That's the one drawback, is it does target. But the final like really awesome bonus is the high ceiling of not only just this being an awesome removal spell that can't be responded to, but it's not just a 1-for-1. If you're going after Fusion or Synchro specifically, I guess Link too. So like Fusion, you can send stuff like Intis, Fossil Skull Warrior, something like these new Albaz fusions like Albion, and then on the end phase just fucking Surge branded Fusion for free for next turn. That's crazy. If you're going after Synchro, you can send something like Wind Pegasus to get that graveyard punish set up. Send Herald of the Arclight, depending on the deck you're playing against, to get a free search. Send Omega, right, for his graveyard effect. Like really, really cool options there. And then in the links, you could even send the Tri-Brigade link too, just to cycle a card in your hand and say, I got a brick anyway, so I'm going to not only handle a card on your field that you can't even respond to, but I'm also going to cycle this bad card out of my hand, or at least attempt to. I don't imagine people trying to negate that in Grave. So really, really cool card. I think this card becomes a staple removal spell in side decks, depending on the format, depending if fusions and synchro decks are really good, or they're setting up a lot of monster negates on field so that this is a card that can't be responded to, but starts breaking the board early. Love it. Absolutely love it. And the final card here is Cara, the Immovable Avatar. This is our other really generic good card. This card kind of fits into that kaiju category. So it has some benefits over stuff like kaijus in sphere mode and lava golem. The first things first, it comes to your field. It doesn't go to your opponent's field. It gains a bunch of attack points, so it becomes at least 3,000, but a lot of times it'll probably be 4,500. And a rare case is 6,000. And it revives something on your opponent's, or on your end phase. It revives any monster from your opponent's grave. Something like a Baronne de Fleur just coming back to your field. Something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think what else is like a really good card that you could be reviving off. Like DPE. You just straight up steal your opponent's DPE before they try and get it back on their end phase, even if they fired it early. And the other bonus would be, or I'm sorry, not the other bonus. The one downside would be this, that this card can only treat monsters that have already activated their effects that turn on the opponent's field. So you kind of have to bait out negates, kind of like Beta Baronne negate, Beta Chi-Jiao effect to negate something, and then you can clear them off the field with this. So there are certain matchups, stuff that plays DPE and he clears himself off the field immediately. That kind of works around this. Griffin Rider negates and shuffles himself back, so that kind of works around this. So that's just definitely something you have to keep in mind, that it's definitely going to be matchup based, but I do think this card is an absolute house. This card could give you the potential to OTK, and it doesn't take your normal summon, by the way. I think that's the other bonus I didn't say, is Lava Golem and Smear Mode have the multiple tribute thing going on, but they take your normal summon. This card does not, which means you can use your normal summon to bait those negates, and that gives you the way to clear all their stuff with this card once they've fired off their monster effects. So really, really powerful card. like, again, I think this fits the same vibe as Artemis Slay. I think it's definitely matchup dependent for sure, but as long as we have a deck, I think like Sword Soul is a prime example of a deck that this card would tear to pieces. Bait out the Chi-Ja negate, bait out the Baronne de Fleur, tribute them both, and then you reborn the Baronne de Fleur. So this card's 4,500. You probably dinked your opponent for a ton of damage or cleared another monster off their field. Then you get the Baronne de Fleur back, and its negate is live. Absolutely insane. This card and Artemis Slay will definitely be considerations for every side deck in every format, just depending on what's currently good, what are your matchups, and all that stuff. Very, very cool to see, though. So all in all, I think if I'm looking at this, I think that the new archetypes are bangers. 2 potential tier 1 archetypes out the gate, and another one that could be rogue if people figure it out right. The other one is support. You're looking at like insane cards like the Mathmech support, Exosister, the Rika stuff, and I feel like I'm missing one more really good one. Scareclaw. Scareclaw has like a really good support. The Link one is really good. And so a handful of those. A couple other cards that are really interesting as well, but those are like the big ones that stand out to me. And then for the generic cards, a couple really cool ones. And then you finish it with just like 2 absolute bombs that are going to be probably expensive staples out the gate. And hopefully you can get your hands on them, or they'll get reprints later down the line. Absolute staples, for sure. I think this set hits every category in a really good, solid way. I think it probably comes out to like an 8.5 out of 10 for me, which is actually really high. I know that sounds like, oh, like a B? That's what? Trust me, most sets probably come out to like a 6 or a 7. 8.5 is actually really, really high. I promise you, I cannot even remember the last core set that I would say like rivals this one in terms of like hitting every single category. We've had sets that have good new archetypes, but the support's mediocre, really good support, but then maybe there's no like really awesome high-end generic cards in the set like this set has. This set has it all. I cannot wait to see what the TC exclusive do to really round it out. New archetype there. 4 new archetypes in one set. Crazy. But yeah, this is a really, really good set. It's one of the best sets I've seen core set wise in a while. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. Thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, let me know your thoughts down below. Where do you stand on this set? How good do you think it is? And what are you most excited for? Like, what's tickling your pickle the most here? Are you excited to play Splites? Are you excited to play the new waifu deck Tier Elements? Are you trying to play a Cyber deck with the Mathmech cards? Are you trying to just get these 2 new meta staples and vibe with those in the side deck or the main if you're playing a going second strategy? Like, there's definitely huge potential in this set all the way around. Let me know what you're most excited for. And I'm getting the hell out of here. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.